I would like to call the regularly scheduled Plan Commission meeting to order. Let the record reflect that it is Thursday, February 18th, 2021 at 7:01 p.m. This is Chairman Garrett Gray speaking. At this time, I would ask that anyone joining us via remotely to please mute your phone. Thank you. For those wishing to follow along with the PowerPoint, you are encouraged to access the meeting through Tinley Park Television on YouTube. It is my understanding that all members and staff present have checked in on the conference line and we can begin our meeting. Please note, throughout the meeting, we expect to have other individuals joining us via phone pertaining to the specific agenda items. Thank you in advance for your patience and cooperation throughout tonight's Plan Commission meeting, which is convening remotely via conference call. This open meeting of the Village of Tinley Park is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Pritzker's Executive Order 2020-07 issued on March 16, 2020, which suspends the Open Meetings Act provisions relating to in-person attendance by members of a public body. The Open Meetings Act, OMA, requires public bodies to allow for public comment. Therefore, this meeting will include public comment via the established protocol. Even if members of the public do not provide comment, participants are advised that people may be listening who do not provide comment, and those persons are not required to identify themselves. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by web or audio conference. We are getting used to working and meeting remotely, so I don't feel it is completely necessary to go over all of the protocols again. Please just remember to wait until I address you. And until you're addressed, please keep your phones muted. Then you can unmute and identify yourself name first. Thank you. With that, we will ask our acting commission secretary to please call the roll at this time.
Okay. Commissioner Engel. Commissioner Manny.
Here.
Commissioner Gatto.
Here.
Commissioner Aitchison.
Here.
Commissioner Bick. Commissioner Bick. Commissioner Gaskell.
He's not here.
Commissioner Gaskell. Commissioner West.
Actually, I didn't hear Gaskell join us either, now that I think about it.
Okay. Commissioner West.
Present.
Commissioner Lasciuto.
Present.
And Chairman Gray.
Here. Okay. We'll move on to communications. Once again, this is Chairman Gray. Staff, are there any communications for the commission at this time?
This is Paula, no.
Okay. This is Chairman Gray. Let us now begin with the approval of the minutes. May I have a motion to approve the minutes, the January 7th, 2021 meeting?
This is Commissioner Gatto, so moved.
Do I hear a second? If you could please unmute yourself. Do I hear a second?
Is it supposed to be Commissioner West?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, then I second it.
Okay, thank you. Motion, this is Chairman Gray. Motion made by Commissioner Gatto, seconded by Commissioner West. I will now ask for a voice vote. Are there any opposed to this motion? Hearing none, the motion is carried. Okay, moving on. We have one item on the agenda this evening. It is a workshop to consider recommending that the Village Board approve the proposed text amendment to allow a pickup window in the Neighborhood Flex Legacy Districts. The proposed text amendments will define a pickup window to distinguish it from a drive-through or drive-in establishment and allow a pickup window as a special use for restaurant uses in the Neighborhood Flex Districts. The pickup window will be limited to pre-orders only No on-site ordering will be allowed. Staff, please make your presentation at this time.
Thank you. This is Paula. Before I begin, just a matter of housekeeping. Commissioner Manny, would you please take Commissioner Gaskell's closure at the end of the script there, since he didn't show up? All right, before I begin, I want to make sure, I just, as a point of fact, that I want the minutes to reflect that the staff report has been distributed to the commission. It's posted on our website, and therefore the staff report will be attached to the minutes and made a part of the meeting record. All right, so we have a carryout window in the neighborhood flex as the topic of our workshop this evening, and most of you, I think, have gone through a text amendment with staff, and you know we don't really take these lightly, but my sort of soapbox speech is that not only do we need to test our code from time to time and make sure that it is resulting in the vision that we intended it to do, and especially with respect to the legacy district, we have a legacy plan that lays out our vision. But we also need from time to time to make sure that our code is current with market conditions, you know, economic conditions, and the intended use, as I mentioned. So recently, we did receive a request from Durbin's Restaurant. Most of you are probably familiar with it in our downtown core at 17265 Oak Park Avenue, a successful restaurant and bar. And they are looking to expand and find a sort of an ancillary restaurant where they can provide for easy delivery services and pickup services of their product. So they have entered into a lease at the northwest corner of 183rd and Oak Park Avenue, where the old Ames, I think it's a sporting goods store, was just north of, is that Dottie's? I don't remember. Dan, is that Dottie's or Darla's? Darla?
And yeah, Ames is more not a sporting goods store, but yes, that's what was there.
The T-shirt place or whatever. So anyway, they've approached staff and wanted to see what they could do to get a drive-through in that establishment on the north side of the building. And we had to tell them the good news that no drive-throughs are allowed in our legacy district. It's strictly prohibited. And from there, we started to research what the opportunities were and looking at some kind of facility that would meet their needs. Again, you know, it's not good practice to try to change code for any one precedent. But what we have realized is that not only has COVID sort of spurred some of this demand, but what we have found out through our analysis and our dialogue with some of our existing restaurants throughout our community is those restaurants that were able to quickly adapt to the COVID climate, where they could provide efficient delivery of the product. They have fared very well, and they would like to continue to operate in that manner despite COVID. And so it's a new way of operating. My husband works for the National Restaurant Association, and they've been very responsive and are actually writing new videos and product for this certain situation. So it's timely that we take a look at it and see how make sure that we are staying current with the demands of our community. And as I mentioned, you know, they are strictly prohibited in the legacy district, but we've had other requests. If you recall, Dan did a really good job with the Chipotle special use out at Brookside Marketplace, where Chipotle is one of the new restaurant, fast casual restaurants that has modified their model, the delivery model, because as you probably know, if you've been to Chipotle, it's a made-to-order product. You walk in, you decide what ingredients you want. So it really doesn't lend itself very well to a drive-up situation, because it does take a fair amount of time to create the product. So they are leasing the Bank of America, the old Bank of America out Brookside Marketplace, and this has already gone through our review process. But because the bank had a fairly short stacking, there was a lot of concern on how this would operate until they made it clear to us that this is really just a pickup window only. They don't order at the window. They just come and pick up their product that they've ordered. So, and if any other use were to go out there, Dan did a good job in conditioning that approval that it has to be reviewed. So it's this whole new way of operating with our restaurants, and we have new delivery services like Grubhub and DoorDash, and then we have online ordering and call-in ordering. There's been a significant increase, and I think I documented some of this. The fast casual type restaurants were noting some 50 to 70% of the revenue generated through these windows. And so I think it is something that is here to stay, certainly beyond COVID times, and I think we need to be responsive to what the situation is. However, we also need to be respectful of the legacy plan and what the intent was for our downtown. And that's why in our analysis we think it's very critical that we make a distinction between a pickup window and a drive-through window. We have drive-through establishments identified in our code, and they are, as I mentioned, prohibited in the legacy district, and primarily because, just like most downtowns, we have focused on our downtown core to be pedestrian-friendly, and that means as few curb cuts as possible, focused on the pedestrian rather than the vehicle, liven up the street face with, or activate the street face with sidewalk cafes on them and so forth. So this is the way the legacy plan and following that the legacy code was written to make sure that we protect that kind of ambiance in the downtown. So one of the early on decisions staff made is that we need to make sure that we're not just loosening up the code and allowing an erosion of this pedestrian-friendly focus, but that we are looking at something that's distinct from a drive-through window, and that is the pickup window that I've described. So if we want to move on to, I guess you're on that slide, the slide with the Starbucks, and that just illustrates, I mean, I'm sure all of you have sat in a line like that. That's certainly not something we want to see happen in our downtown. And the next slide is just what's interesting, especially in those states with warmer climates, these pickup windows have really exploded to promote contactless delivery of their products. So obviously that wouldn't work for us today on a day like today, but not only have they looked at these pickup windows for pedestrians, but just for pickup of pre-ordered products as well. And that's why I put the Domino's on there, because those, you certainly don't pull up to a window and order your pizza. You order it ahead of time and then pick it up. Let's move on to zoning and talk about that a little bit. As I mentioned, the legacy code, which was a result of the legacy plan, that the plan was adopted in 2009, and then in 2011, the village adopted the legacy code. And as with any code, it really needs to be tested against cases that were actually happening. And even though it was a while ago, 2011, there's just, I would say in the last 6 years since I've been here, we have tested the code and we have made amendments as a product of it. So this is not the first amendment to the legacy code. The precursor to the legacy code, though, was the historic district. And prior to legacy code's adoption in 2011, we had an H1 district. And just like our legacy code, it prohibited drive-ups. But that H1 district was smaller than the neighborhood flex district that we're talking about. Oh, I'm sorry, on that slide that you have up there now, Dan, I just wanted to point out, for those of you that haven't been involved that much with the legacy code, it comprises 6 different character districts. So the legacy area spans all the way on the north from 167th all the way south to 183rd and along Oak Park Avenue. And it starts right in the middle with the downtown core where we have our highest density and it prioritized pedestrians. And then it emanates from there in both directions, north and south, and transitions to downtown flex, downtown general, neighborhood general, and then eventually at the very north and the very south, the bookends of the district is the neighborhood flex district. And that neighborhood flex district is the one that we have, staff has felt that could most easily accommodate a change to a pickup window. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. But let's go to that next slide where we look at the H1 district in comparison to the neighborhood flex district. And as I mentioned, the historic district was kind of a precursor to the legacy code, and it certainly was created to respect the history of the downtown area, protect it, and also protect the pedestrian aspect of the downtown core. We're very, very fortunate to have the train station there, the metro station, which is the backbone to that area. But as you can see, the H1 district was much smaller than the legacy districts, and it did not encompass either the north or the south neighborhood flex districts. Those districts were primarily B3 and a portion of B1 or R1, but for the most part, when the legacy code was adopted, those two areas lost their ability for drive-ins, drive-throughs. Prior to that, like right now, we allow drive-throughs in the B3 district as well as the ORI and the M1 district. So when those areas at the very north and the very south end of the legacy code were approved for the neighborhood flex districts, they lost their ability to have drive-ups. But I want to emphasize especially so that we don't see an erosion of our legacy code that those other districts, neighborhood flex, neighborhood general, downtown core, those are all districts that we need to continue to protect the original intent of the legacy plan, and that is, protecting the focus on pedestrians. So we want to move on to the next slide. I've put this in here just to give you a little bit history of how those two neighborhood flex districts operate. At the very north end, and actually it's interesting that the neighborhood flex at the north end on 167th, it only goes up to the south side of 167th. The north side of 167th is not in the legacy district, so drive-throughs can occur in those corners. And if you see sort of the graphic representation of what the plan, these snippets are from the plan. The idea was with the redevelopment of that corner, they wanted to see those buildings move up to the right-of-way and create kind of a street face. So that southeast corner, with the Ace Hardware shopping center has a gas station at the corner, and the southwest corner has a bank, and then some office and strip center commercial. And then on the north side, you have the liquor store and the 7-Eleven. But the idea there was to anchor the north end with some commercial uses. But with the district as the way it was approved, the prohibition of drive-through establishments only applies to the south side. And even with that, there was pre-existing conditions with the bank, which does have a drive-through establishment. And if you look at the north, at the south end, and that graphic, I think this is my personal opinion, certainly not the village board's opinion, is I would have loved to see the roundabout. And I know Dan kind of feels the same way. We love roundabouts. Maybe this wasn't the best location for it, but the plan had the idea that, as you can see, the buildings would reflect the curvature of the roundabout, boulevards in both directions, and even the platting of the northeast and northwest areas and the improvements with the sidewalks. If you go out there today, you'll see the sidewalks are kind of in a curvilinear pattern to reflect that. But there will be no roundabout. That concept is gone. And so that intersection is going to need to operate typical of a commercial, more mixed-use intersection. And, who knows with the redevelopment of those parcels whether the right-of-ways would be realigned to be more at right angles. It remains to be seen how those areas will develop. But that sort of gives you an idea of why it made sense if you look at the roundabout area, and if that roundabout had been developed and those buildings developed, you can see that there certainly wasn't any opportunity for curb cuts and drive-throughs that would work with that configuration. But this southern area really serves as a gateway to the Legacy District. We were coming from the amphitheater on the south and from the convention center to the west. And it's the beginning of our district, and it certainly needs to function as a transition from those more heavily commercial areas that run along 183rd Street, which, as you know, there's several drive-through establishments, Culver's and so forth, Dunkin' Donuts, that exist along that corridor. So when analyzing this request and looking at where this might work in our Legacy District, we again, as I mentioned, went back to the Legacy Plan as our basis and made sure that we were staying true to the original goals. The Legacy Plan had 10 principles, based on a three-pronged approach. That was the preservation of the historic character, economic development, promoting economic development, and making sure the infrastructure and urban design were consistent with the overall vision of the plan. And with those guiding principles, we certainly understand that we need to protect that walkable downtown, making sure the building mass is at the peak in the downtown core, and that as we emanate out from that, we look at a transition of uses. But in the same vein, and what our thinking is also about building a strong economic future for the downtown, and that is making sure that we are staying current with market demand and the trends. And as I mentioned before, these more efficient ways of delivery of food products through pickup windows, I think is something that we're going to see continue to be of high demand in our entire community. And our desire was to see if there was some way we could make that fit in the Legacy Code. So since the Neighborhood Flex District acting as bookends and gateways at both ends of the district, we felt that it would serve as a transition from, prototypical commercial layouts and configurations to the more residential and pedestrian orientation of the districts. And therefore, we certainly felt it deserved consideration for pickup windows. One of the reasons why we want to make very sure that we're distinguishing between a drive-through and a pickup is that when you think of a drive-through, one of the main things you are concerned about is making sure that there is adequate stacking off of the public right-of-way. Otherwise, you get like that picture I showed you earlier with the Starbucks. And so if you need to have that much stacking, when you think of the layout of that window, you either got to wrap around the building in several ways, or you have to make sure that building is set back far enough from the right-of-way. And that's the opposite of really what we're trying to establish in the Legacy District by creating an urban wall or a street wall. And that is another reason why we're supporting continued prohibition of any kind of drive-through. But with the carryout, or the pickup window, the idea is that there would be no online ordering. They would not be allowed to order on site. No menu boards would be available, that they've been assigned a specific time to come pick up their product. They're going to move quickly through the facility, so there isn't stacking of 5, 10 cars. And that allows for us to accommodate those buildings that have the lesser setbacks. when we looked at the two different districts, and if you want to go to that slide with the stars on it, Dan. So on the north end, this is the Ace Hardware. I just sort of started to look at buildings that might be able to accommodate it. And again, it's there's a lot of things that have to go into this consideration, because one of the things we will recommend is that if the commission is supportive of providing or allowing carry-out windows, pickup windows, I keep on saying carry-out, pickup windows in the neighborhood flex, that we'll want to do that on a case-by-case basis, and we'll do that through the special use process with conditions. And so each time there is a request for this, we're certainly going to look at it in the context of the property and the adjacent properties around it, making sure that we're not causing any negative impacts. So the stars just kind of show areas that we thought, oh, it might work. For example, at that southwest corner, you have a drive up. And if we go to the next slide, you can kind of see where possibly, I mean, the stars there on the left-hand side of that, I think that is that Sayre Avenue. I mean, those are all going to require some sort of redevelopment, and we're not really going to see that much commercial demand over there. But the corner piece, the northwest corner, that's the property that, if this text amendment is approved, they'll be before you. They'll come before you requesting this. This will probably be the first request that you see. In thinking about the conditions, though, I think what's very important is that we have some parameters on which we would actually consider this. As I mentioned, a special use, so it can be looked at on a case-by-case basis, but we will also want to make sure that the property has an existing curb cut. We do not want to be creating new curb cuts. All that does is stop the pedestrian flow and impacts the pedestrian access to these properties. We'll also want to make sure that those pickup windows are only on the sides or the rear of the facade, certainly not in the front. No menu boards would be allowed either, so that we make sure that there's no on-site ordering. And of course, for the use, confining it just to restaurant uses. As I mentioned, then the other aspect of this that we want to move to definitions is that we need to be very clear that there's a distinction between a drive-through window and a pickup window. The drive-through window definition, we actually have a definition for drive-through establishments, not for a drive-through window. So I wanted to make sure it was very clear that the drive-through window is where you have the opportunity to place orders on the site. The pickup window is specific in that there is on-site ordering of the product is strictly prohibited. So this is just a workshop. I'm anxious to hear what you think. Just to summarize this again, we're looking at creating a special use for restaurant uses in the neighborhood flex districts of the Legacy area that would allow for a pickup window, but only on those properties that have existing curb cuts, and the window has to be confined to just the side or the rear of the facade, and that there'll be no menu board signage allowed. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Okay, thanks, Paula. This is Chairman Gray. At this time, I'm going to ask our commissioners if they have anything to discuss on what Paula just presented, beginning with Commissioner Manny. Any comments?
Okay, one comment to the staff. So for this pickup window, this is only going to really affect, the corner businesses, or it has like an end cap only.
I think you would have to. You're right.
Right.
You would have to, yeah.
Well,
unless they do it in the rear.
Well, yeah, I think also to the rear, I think that's more difficult because a lot, many businesses, they might have, their utilities connecting the back. They may have a transformer or something, and then, their trash bin, whatever, and I think will make it dangerous having someone going to the back, That's one of my concerns. You know, so, you know, we want to have our, you know, our citizens, you know, well protected, you know, and not have, you know, slip and fall, and then we have a lawsuit or something. My other concern is,
I agree.
it favors, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you make a good point, and I think it points out to the fact that there really aren't going to be that many opportunities to provide for this.
Right, you know, but my other concern too, you know, it favors, corner properties or strip center, just the end caps, you know, just if you want to have the pickup window to the, you know, to the side. But then other, you know, same another restaurant, you know, earlier you were showing the plan of the corner of 167th and Oak Park, like Melly's, you know, that restaurant, you know, or the restaurant next to it that I think they sell Chinese food. You know, like if they wanted to do something like that, you know, they couldn't, right? I mean, only if you direct them to the back, but then again, like I said, you know, it's more, you know, it's dangerous, you know, to send someone to the back to pick up their food, you know.
Right.
So not everyone would be able to take advantage of this. You know, it's kind of like, I want to say it's kind of like unfair, you know, because, you know, we want to make sure, we want to create, you know, policies or whatever, you know, that anybody could take you know, if they're able to take the opportunity, great, you know. And those are my comments, you know, that's how I look at this, you know.
Yeah, but that's inherent in any code. I mean, the code, fair isn't the right word really to look at this, but we've tailored the code to provide opportunities where it makes sense. And we're certainly trying to address and make sure that we're staying current with the demands of the marketplace, and we're trying to ensure the economic survivability of the downtown. But no, not every property can accommodate this.
Right. So what is your idea not allowing it, say, at the front, you know? They have, you know, as new business come in or whatever, you know, they could design it, you know, accordingly. You know, here, this is just a pickup window. I'll say they'll have a little, you know, however it's designed, but why can't they have it in the front? Obviously, yeah, you don't want no on-site ordering, you know, just for pickup, but, you know, what's your thought on that?
Well, it just wouldn't work, not only from aesthetics, but we don't want to interfere with the pedestrian access that's going to the front door of the building. So just like when we design fast food restaurants, you know, McDonald's and everywhere else, you don't want to mix the vehicular traffic with the pedestrian traffic. So it just wouldn't work in the phone.
No, right.
And that's why, it's why there's a special use here, is because there's going to be situations where even the back or the side might not work on a specific property. Either that's existing or gets developed in the future. So that's kind of the thought behind it being a special use and not a permitted use, is it gives, these will come before you guys to say, does this work? You know, does the traffic work? Does the pedestrian access work? Does even assuming there could be a couple cars stacked at a pickup window, does that work? Is there enough parking? Things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the thought process behind making this a special use, not permitted by right.
Right.
Correct.
Right. Okay. So those were my concerns and comments.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Manny. Commissioner Gatto, any comments at this time?
No, Commissioner Manning covered it all. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner West.
Yeah, frankly, I think this is a slam dunk. I think especially given that it is going to be a special use, you know, we're going to be able to weed out those situations that might negatively impact traffic, and we're going to have the rights to, you know, request a traffic study or whatever needs to be done to make sure that we're maintaining the intent and, you know, the spirit and the letter of that legacy district. But I really, really love how much we're talking about pedestrianism in the area, because I think this really could add some, you know, additional impetus for active pedestrianism, and the economic benefit is pretty obvious. I really don't see any problem here, and I'm really excited about the possibilities.
Excellent. Thank you, Commissioner West. Commissioner Aitchison.
I just want to second Commissioner West's comments. I think that this is a slam dunk. It's an excellent idea.
Okay. Commissioner Lasciuto.
I really do think that this does strike a good balance between, helping these businesses grow and then also keeping, in part with the legacy and the pedestrian, keeping it pedestrian safe and all that. And this may be a stupid question for the staff, but when we're talking about defining the pickup window, are we defining it as a drive-up pickup window? I guess my question is, where would walk-up pickup windows be? Are they part of the code? Are they allowed currently, or is this something that could be implemented later on?
I think the pickup window could be pedestrian as well. It could be pedestrian or it could be car. I mean, it kind of depends on, I guess, the location, on whether we would think that would occur in this location. But as I mentioned, in some of the warmer climates, the pickup windows have really become favored for contactless delivery of services. So
I guess my question is it kind of like, so say, expanding it out of this flex area, like say through the heart of Oak Park Avenue, where it's mostly pedestrian. Now, would this be included in that, or would that have to be a separate text amendment to allow walk-up pickup windows in that area?
Yeah, that would have to be another whole consideration. And certainly anywhere but here, we would not want to see it be accessed by vehicles. We strictly want to keep pedestrian-friendly dominant in the rest of the districts.
And I totally agree with that. I was just saying for the downtown, if you were doing pedestrian walk-up pickup windows, because with the effects of COVID, there may be people that still don't want to go inside of places. Even when we are all vaccinated, this may change society a little bit for all of us. But I mean, I agree with the other commissioners. This is a slam dunk, and it does create a great balance of what we're trying to achieve in the downtown district.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Lasciuto. This is Chairman Gray. I just want to piggyback on some of the stuff that has been said. I concur with the commissioners and staff on this, as we don't want to erode the intent of the legacy plan, and we definitely want to protect that walkable downtown. And that's why on page 6 of 7 of the staff report, it does mention looking at this at a case-by-case basis. And so with that said, I believe this location that's on that very south end, on that southwest corner of 183rd and Oak Park Avenue, is a decent candidate, but we're just talking about definitions. But I just want to say I would definitely view that differently if it was like staff showed in the original renderings from when it was being considered for a roundabout on that southern gateway. But that's not the case these days. So I think it is a decent candidate. Again, I don't want to get too far off point. We're talking about definitions. And so I think it was interesting what Commissioner Lasciuto just brought up about defining walk-up versus drive-through, or pickup windows. And I would definitely not want to mix the two. I wouldn't want to have two pedestrians, in front of a car or sandwiched between two in a pickup lane. But with that said, the biggest thing is, with a case-by-case basis, you'd also have to look at each potential site for stacking, because you mentioned this, Paul, in the staff report. We definitely don't want a Starbucks situation. You showed us a slide, and I know there's a Starbucks just off of Harlem that my wife goes to, and that is always backed up at the drive-through. So I'm okay with the case by case and keeping existing curb cuts to keep in line with the legacy plan and protect that walkable area. So, and to some of the commissioners' point, and I think staff mentioned too, you know, COVID has been a driver to change how restaurants are doing things. And so a pickup window is probably going to be here to stay for a lot of businesses. So I think this is a good idea, and I do appreciate the foresight of staff to kind of get on board and at least set up definitions that can be applied on a case-by-case basis. So I think it's a decent idea. So does anybody else have any other comments at this time? Hearing none, I just would like to say that my understanding is that there will be a public hearing on this item then on March 4th, the 2021 meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And is there anything to add on that, Paula?
Nope, the petitioner is the village. We don't have an applicant in this situation. It is the village-sponsored request.
Okay. Okay. Well, hopefully you got enough comments to give guidance. With that said, do you have any comments for the good of the order?
Yeah, I just have a couple, and although it sort of reminds me of church where the priest is speaking to the people that aren't there. But you've seen me get really aggressive, and I guess in some ways I'm hiding my annoyance at trying to find out if we have a quorum or not. And obviously, those of you that are here, you did a very good job in letting us know, so I thank you. But and I will need to speak with those that are not here, because what happens, especially during this COVID, we try to write this script for you, but we can't write it unless we know who's coming. And, you know, we really hate to do this at the 11th hour. So, and then telling us that you're coming and then not showing up, that's really problematic. You know, we barely made quorum here. So I don't want to sound like a witch, but it just would make our lives easier. To me, you should all assume you're coming to a meeting and maybe let us know now in the next 2 months when you're not going to be there. Things come up, and we certainly understand that. There's illnesses and so forth, and some of your jobs, I know, interfere. But I would love to know for the next 3 months, you know, who's going to be here and who's not. So thank you, and sorry to be a nag about that. And the only other thing I could think about is the Do Right sign and the daycare. Those both got approved at the board meeting, so that's your hard work was appreciated there. We will be seeing heats coming forward to us here in March, if everything goes well. And we have another down by Urban Square, Union Square, I'm so sorry. Union Square, we have another townhome development that will be coming forward to you in March, we think. The Panduit site is working on some plans, so that's going to be coming shortly, as is the Crana that we talked about a while ago over there by 80th Avenue and 191st. They're just working on their access on 80th Avenue right now. Dan is working on a couple projects, working on a Dunkin' Donuts on 171st that'll prove interesting. He's also got 2 Starbucks locations. We're going to be talking about a lot of drive-up and stacking here coming up. We've got a Starbucks looking at one on LaGrange, just south of 171st, and then where our 7-Eleven was approved on 171st in Harlem, we're looking at a Starbucks over on that corner. Not on the corner, just off the corner on the southwest side. Dan, is there anything else that you wanted to mention? Besides he's taking a couple vacation days, going down to New Orleans. I'm jealous.
No, we got a bunch of we have a bunch of stuff coming up here in March and April, so we've got a couple shorter meetings that proved a little quicker, but the next few meetings might be kind start picking up, so.
Yes, so we really need you. So please let us know if you're going to be able to make those meetings. And then Kathleen, did Kathleen show up there, Dan?
Yes. She's here.
Oh. You want to say hi to everybody, Kathleen?
Hello. Sorry I started a bit late.
She's juggling commissions.
Yeah, our other meeting ran over.
Juggling commissions.
Yeah.
So she's taken over the responsibilities for Barb, so. All right, that's all I have, Chairman.
Okay, thanks, Paula. And I agree. I just want to reiterate, absolutely, commissioners who are here, they understand the drill, but absolutely give advance notice to let staff know who's going to be at the meeting. With that said, again, this is Chairman Gray speaking. Were there any public comments submitted to or members of the public currently present wishing to speak today?
No, there's not.
No.
Okay. With that, this is Chairman Gray. If there's nothing further, I will entertain a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
This is Commissioner Manning, so moved.
This is Commissioner Lasciuto. I second that motion.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Gaskell, Commissioner Manny, seconded by Commissioner Lasciuto. I will take a voice vote. Anyone opposed? Okay, hearing no opposition, the motion carries. This meeting is adjourned at 7:47 p.m. Okay, take care, everybody.
Job.
Good job.
Thank you.